Have you asked yourself lately, or maybe for a couple of years already, is it time to leave my job? Is it time to leave my career and do something different? If you have, I have the perfect interview for you today, because all the questions that you may have, like, how is it going to be? What am I going to do? How is it going to be if I don't have the income and the prestige anymore that you have now? All these questions get answered today with my guest of this week's episode of It's Never Too Late to Live a Life You Love. Welcome, I'm Bettina, your host, and my guest today is Yvonne Hendrych, who is a wonderful, wonderful woman. You will love her. So Yvonne crafted her career in Europe. She was born in Munich, Germany. She crafted her career very carefully. She became a lawyer and then she went on to the European Commission in Brussels to be a lobbyist. So she worked for over a decade with the movers and shakers in Europe that, are in charge of bringing big changes about. And she was part of that fabric and really, really had loved her job and enjoyed the prestige, the money, everything, the travel, everything that came with it. Until one day, she told me she was at the function. And everybody was standing there with the wine glasses and with the appetizer and so on. And she was standing next to the snack table, as she put it. And she looked around and she saw the people that she had been working with for years and who she really respected and loved. But still, she realized that this life no longer fits her, that there was something other calling to her. And this calling is so significant because she heard it in her late 30s, approaching 40. When many of us hear that, when we have the big birthdays, there is some calling that we often hear. But for her, it was not just the question of leaving a job, but also she knew that she wanted to be a mom. And she knew also, or she feared, what if I leave everything that I know now and do something completely different? Can I still find the man that I'm going to fall in love with and who is, also wants to have children? So for her, this was a huge, huge decision. And I encourage you to watch this interview in full because Yvonne may be answering questions and giving perspectives today that could really, really change your life. And I reached Yvonne, not in Germany or Brussels, in fact, not even Europe. I reached Yvonne in Rio de Janeiro, in the jungle, where she's living now with, well, let's find out.
Oh, it's so nice that you made this introduction, especially with this image, because I think this was one of those short images that I had so many years back. I saw myself in this lush green in a tropical country, but it was just a picture and then it went away because it was so far away from the life that I had built and that I had built because I wanted it. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to work in the international environment. I wanted to go to Brussels. I wanted to work for the European Union and, this idea of bringing Europe closer and closer together and building something together. So I was following a path that I had wanted and I had built consciously. Just at one point, it really started to shift. At one point, I started to think, well, just because I chose it many years back, do I have to live with this choice now forever? Even if I feel that something is shifting, I have the feeling, and it was not one point or one click or one moment when I woke up and said, no, I don't think that's it. It was like this soft feeling. It became a little bit louder. And for a very long time, it was like, no, Yvonne, don't listen. You build this path so straightforward. You are in a good life. Everyone is telling you you're in a good life. You're earning well. You travel a lot. You can do all the things that you want to do. Don't think now outside of the box, because who knows what's outside of the box. But I felt there was something. And I would say even for 2-3 years, I managed to not listen to it too much, to this little voice. And then it became louder and louder. And then luckily, my body helped me in understanding that it's really something I have to listen in terms of making me sick. I strongly believe that whenever we feel something in our body, it's nothing more than communication. It's an important communication that is happening with us to saying, okay, Yvonne, listen, I don't know. I think you don't get it. So I have to send you this stomach cramps because otherwise you're not listening to what's going on there. And this is what happened to me. At one point, also the physical voices became louder and louder and made me think, what exactly are you doing here? And even more than a question of what are you doing here, because you can stay for a while at a point where you say, I don't like it so much, but it makes sense. But what was the worst for me was this lack of an inspiring perspective. You know, this thing where you say, I'm working towards it, I'm striving towards it, and there is something that is, you know, making me anxious to get up in the morning because there's something I want to create, I want to do. And I was absolutely without this. And I think a life where you don't have any kind of perspective is really a miserable life.
What did you do to really seriously consider leaving a career that you so delicately crafted and successfully crafted, to really leave this behind? Because that's that's a very big step.
I couldn't stand it anymore. It's something emotional, and that's, I think, also the tricky part, because when there are people out there watching this and they say, oh, I think I have a similar feeling, sometimes it's so difficult to communicate it to others, and it's so difficult to even pinpoint what exactly it is, because it's a mixture of many things, and for everyone it's differently. For some it's maybe, you know, not only leaving a job but also leaving a marriage that's not longer working. For other, it's not only leaving a job, but it's, you know, also the extreme wish for creating finally the family or creating this marriage and relationship. So for everyone, there is a combination of different things. The worst part in it, and I hear this over and over from my clients, is also the thing, I don't even know what exactly it is. I believe it's my job. I believe it's maybe the place where I believe it's the relationship, but I feel bad because I cannot say it with this accuracy. It's exactly this. So I think this was a very tough one for me, not being able to really say it's just this, it's just the job, because I was still thinking, maybe I just have to change the job. Maybe if I just do it a little bit different. I think there's so much wisdom in ourselves. And I think when you come up rationally with this, okay, I will just try to change the job, and your body still doesn't respond in a positive way to it, then you know the answer is probably much larger than just changing the job.
And I know from previous conversations, it was for you, it was not just the job that you were doubting, but also when you realized, okay, so maybe it's also the place, that you need to have a different location that you want to be in. At the same token, you also had the reality of, you know, there's 40 in front of me, and you wanted to have children, and you do still, I mean, you are a woman who wants to be a mother. So having this conversation in your head simultaneously too, you know, it's like, okay, so do I do this? Do I leave the people that I know, the surrounding that I've, you know, the community that you built for decades? Do you leave this? And then where's my man? Where's my partner? Where's he going to come in? So please, if you maybe, please talk about that too, because it was not just the job, it was much more than that for you.
It was so much related to my own limiting beliefs, to what I had in my mind, how things would be. So for me, for a very long time, it was this, if I leave now and I jump into the unknown, who's going to find me in the unknown? Where should they find me? In Brussels, they know where to find me, you know. I know what to put in, you know, the dating app, and they could find me or not, or where I can go to the next reception, I could find him or not. So there were so many limitations in my mind around this topic, making it a game, you know, a numbers game, like how likely is it here, how likely is it there? And I see this happening with others as well, like this big question, and especially for women, mid 30s towards the end 30s, like they connect everything with each other. Can I move this career move now? If I still want children, if not, what happens then? At one point you get stuck because you're trying to figure out at the same time what I want and how do I get it. And those things, like, they block each other constantly, because you constantly jump from one side to the other, from one side to the other. And once you start to follow down the path a little bit, yes, maybe I really do want to change my life drastically. And then the voice jumps in, but how do you want to do it? And do you think your partner will find you there, whatever you're doing crazy in the jungle? So, and then you're back like, okay, then I think it's not such a good idea. It was really in my head. It was like I constructed this restriction, these boundaries in my head. There's old voices that a lot of us have in our heads, like a life has to go in a certain way to have a certain outcome.
Yes.
And once you deviate from this certain way, forget the outcome, because who knows?
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, I think that happens to a lot of us. We play this ping pong game. Mm-hmm. I want this, but how? I want this, but how? And the ball goes back and forth. And what you're saying is, essentially, that doesn't make you move.
No.
That is what makes you be stuck.
Yeah. And for me, this was really the point. I think also this ping pong, it's a really nice word, back and forth. This is what made me so exhausted. I really had no force whatsoever at one point, because I was constantly going back, forth. And I quit because I had no life force left. It was, in this moment, it wasn't this super courageous decision. What was courageous was what came after. But in this moment, it was pure exhaustion. And it was really at one point I cannot continue like this, and I cannot continue with the ping pong in my head. And probably I just have to take myself out of the situation, just to calm myself down and try to find the answers, because here definitely I won't find any kind of answers.
Okay, so Yvonne, what happened? You give notice, your world as it is changes, and then what did you do? How did you find your answers?
I found the answers through, step by step, letting go of what I thought was right for me.
How did you do that?
It was really a lot of personal growth work that I did in this time, personal development work, reconnecting with myself, also allowing myself to enter a more spiritual perspective of what we're doing here and how we are living and how we are creating our life, and this understanding of absolute freedom in what you're creating and when you're creating. And that also this concept of, at one point, if you see it in a more spiritual realm, time is not linear. It's not like you have this fixed thing and there's like 40 is here, and what you haven't accomplished until 40 never happens, and then 50 is here, what you haven't accomplished till 50 isn't here. It's not, no, it's like going outside. It's like you're here, and when you allow yourself, and when you take away those boundaries in my head, and it was really good deconstruction work I had to do, like the deconstruction also of how does it look like to be a good daughter, how does it look like to be a successful woman, how does it look like to be a woman at all, period, how does it look like to be a woman who wants to find love at a later point in life, who's not yet married with 40 when everyone said you should be now, who didn't have the children at 40 when everyone said, yeah, that's the deadline. So the deconstruction work. And the interesting thing is, once you start working on the deconstruction and you feel this sense of relief and the sense of freedom, the answers come. And they come often in the most unexpected locations, places, conversations. It's the insights. And this is something in retrospective I understand really deeply, because I studied later also neuroscience, and that's what I bring also into my coaching work. In a state where we're constantly stressed, where we're constantly on this survival, where we're constantly, just fight or flight, no way how we could come to creative ideas. There's no way how we could come to really good insights. So we really have to shift, and it starts with this emotional shift, a shift where we are, at least neutral, if preferably in the positive, and really say, okay, I can hold myself for a while in this positive, and the positive is working when I put all the pressure off my shoulders, when I put all the expectations off my shoulders, when I can just be for a while. Yes. And this was really how I understood, and many things I understand now looking backwards, but that's how I see that it worked. It wasn't the search, the pressure to look for answers. It was learning to take the pressure off. And that's a hard work.
Yes.
And especially if you followed a really well-structured path.
Yes.
And this was, I think, the work of discovering what I really want was most importantly a work of putting the pressure off and ripping off the limiting beliefs. And the answers, they came.
And I think you make a very important point also. When we are so immersed in our career, we often work so much and so hard that we don't have the bandwidth, the capacity, neither emotionally nor time-wise, to even ask the questions that you were asking yourself.
Yeah.
And I know from our previous conversation, when you gave notice and you said, okay, no more, you allowed yourself to go on your own personal Eat, Pray, Love journey. So for anybody who has not read the book yet, Eat, Pray, Love is the story of Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, who took a year off to go to India, Italy, and Indonesia to essentially find out who she is, who is Elizabeth. And you did something similar, who is Yvonne. And so if you can briefly touch, because for you, it was not just a year, it was longer than that. And I think the longing that I would have, and maybe many of our viewers have too, they would love to do that too. However, there's also the practicality of it.
Yeah.
How did you finance your travels? How did you finance the possibility of going and being free, taking off the pressure, as you so eloquently put it, and find the answers? Like, how did you finance this life as well? Super important.
Yeah, it's a super important point. And one thing that I want to mention in this is sometimes we think always in absolute terms. It's like, okay, I want to try out something new. I want to try out this experience. So I just have to quit my job. I have to quit everything. It's a huge risk, and then do this experience. And what I did when I was still in my job, when I still had my paycheck, in the last year, so 1 year before leaving, because I had this feeling that I wanted an experience like this, I asked for a longer unpaid leave. So I took my yearly vacations. I asked for a couple of weeks more unpaid leave. I could schedule it in the political summer break in Brussels. And I went for 1.5 months to Thailand, to northeastern Thailand, really rural area. And I went there as a volunteer English teacher for children. And I was living with a Thai family. I was completely immersed in this culture there. And it was such an amazing experience. And I think this experience was like the seed for everything that happened later. Because at one point I was sitting in front of these children, and I mean, I was learning them words like apple, pear, chair, table. But those things that seem so, so basic, easy for us maybe, first of all, for them, it was amazing to learn. They were so eager to learn. You know, they came to me after the sessions or after our lectures that we had, and they said, "Teacher, I want to learn more. Teacher, can you give me more to learn?" You know, this, wow, I didn't have this experience before, that people were so eager to move forward. And the other thing was this sense of purpose that I felt. And I hadn't felt this for such a long time in Brussels, because I felt the political arena is so, you know, you never know when exactly things are going to happen in the future. And you never know how exactly they're going to happen, because in the end, it's a deal. And it's not always the best arguments or the best data. Sometimes it's just the best deal. So I lost the sense of purpose. And doing this experience for 1.5 months without giving up everything, this was for me something that was so helpful and so gratifying. And it was really, for me, the first point where I realized purpose. Purpose, that's the thing that is lacking here. The sense of doing something valuable with my time, the sense of using what I have. And I realized I loved, you know, this teaching, and I'm good with the children and the teenagers. And I felt there is a talent which I'm not using at all in Brussels. So this is already the first thing that I want to tell everyone who's considering a change. There are so many different ways how you can do it. You can choose the all or nothing approach. You can quit everything. You sometimes, you know, you need the big push to do it this way. But you can also explore a lot on a smaller scale, and really, and I think, and looking at our situation right now with COVID and everything, I think we experience right now at the same time also opportunities, how we can experience things, for instance, to work from a different location, to understand how it would feel if we're not the city people, but the country people. If we say, okay, why not move my office, you know, to another country for a certain period of time? So when it comes to finance, it's really important to understand what are your options to trying out things. And I would recommend, if you're not sure about how you're going to manage with your finances, really start the small scale. Sometimes it's already enough for you to get really good information. And for me, it was enough to say, I want more of this.
And then for you, it was a confirmation that you
Yes.
want to live a very different life. And did you then have a budget that said, okay, for the next couple of years, I'm allowing myself to travel? Or what was that all about? And very important, I think, too, were you thinking about like scaling down? Because in our society, we always, oh, the older we get, the more thing we amass. It needs to be the bigger car, the bigger house, the bigger, you know, you have the children. And when you have children, you need to have a bigger place and such. We're always thriving in general, I would say, for more the older we get. But for you, did you scale back? Were you also willing to do things that you may have not been willing to do before? How did that work out for you, like in real life?
So that's a really super important question to consider also for yourself. And for me, myself, I knew, okay, I could afford myself to be for more or less 2 years in a situation of exploration, and to have the savings in place, and to have the situation. And also I had the luxury that I could, you know, give up my apartment, so have no costs at all, move my stuff to my parents' house and use this house also as a home base for my exploration. And downsizing is definitely a huge point in this whole experience. And it is so funny, because looking back, and I can remember in Brussels, I think the most the biggest fears were like, oh, what if I'm losing these things? What if, if I'm losing my nice car and I love my Mini Cooper, and what if I cannot afford anymore, the luxury trips to the luxury resorts? There was a lot of financial fear back then in Brussels. And certainly because subconsciously I connected it to my happiness, which is a fake connection. And when I went on this exploration, I had to downsize. So with 41, 42 years, when I went then to Brazil to do a postgraduate course, I was renting out a room. I went back to studying times. I felt like, the studying
you had
teenagers.
roommates, exactly.
At the roommates.
Yeah, like for an American, this is not so an unusual concept to have roommates, but for us Europeans, we hardly ever do that when we study, when we at university. It's a very, very different concept. And so in your 40s, you had roommates.
It was totally this, because I never had this. I studied and I had immediately my small little apartment for myself. And then with 42, you find yourself with roommates, and it's like you fight over those little things. And I was like, yeah, but how lucky am I that I can do this? And how lucky am I that I enjoyed it? And that was, I think, the biggest revelation for myself. I enjoy it. I don't need this stuff. Actually, it was sort of relief that I had, basically 2 suitcases that were leading me through these 2 years. And, sometimes I bought new stuff, then I gave away the other stuff. So at the end, I always ended up with 2 suitcases. And there you find so much smartness in still having a great life if you allow yourself to say, you know what, it's not the biggest deal, this money. I mean, what do I want? So for me, for instance, in Sao Paulo, was, what do I want? First of all, I'm so happy that I'm in a sunny place. I can sit in the park and I can, read my books there under a palm tree, and it's costing me 0. And I can find, and that's the wonderful thing also about Sao Paulo, Brazil. There are so many things for free, so many cultural things for free, so many concerts. In every corner you have like a little samba concert for free. You don't need the huge investment to buy yourself a wonderful experience. And I really became a hunter for experiences and for, just the thing that make me feel good, and this appreciation of nature, the appreciation of people, just the good conversations, the inspiring conversations, all those things. So that was an amazing experience for me to understand how little I actually need.
Yes.
It doesn't say that I, don't want it, and that I don't, now I'm back to a really good lifestyle, but I understood it's no drama if for what reason ever I would have to downscale again.
Yes. Question, please. Is this something that you consciously taught yourself, or is this something that you realized? Because I can't believe that, in your early 40s, you become a roommate, and your roommate is doing something that really bugs you. Did you never think, oh my God, what have I done? I could be in Brussels with the movers and shakers and get my mini. I mean, did you never think that? Or yes, you did, and then you just retrained? Like, what was that? Did it come naturally that you say, no, I'm good? Or did you also train yourself?
No. There were a lot of down points as well. A lot of moments where I said, what did I do?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the good thing was, not once in a second I questioned my decision to leave Brussels. And I think it's the same. Some people know this, this feeling. Sometimes you struggle so much to go out of a bad relationship. And there are some breakups where, 5 years later, you still question yourself, was it the right choice? I'm not sure. And there are some breakups where you say, this was it. and I'm so 100% clear that this was all the time we had together. And I think this was with Brussels, and I'm not looking back with any anger or harsh feeling. That was our marriage, and it was for the time being a good one. I understood that I had to grow out, and there's no way that I could go back. And this made it really easier for me to say, it's no option going back. It's just an option to go forward. And there were many times where I wasn't exactly clear about every step forward. So, but not questioning that going backwards. That was, the ping pong stopped.
Yeah.
Ping pong between, wouldn't it have been better to stay? It was quiet. And it was just a question of, okay, Yvonne, you have to figure things out because this is your path. So just, get your stuff together, figure things out. Just because you're here right now doesn't mean that you will be exactly on the same place in 3 years from now. And I'm definitely not. So it's also understanding the moment. And when you change, there will be a lot of tough moments. And especially if you make a really drastic change, if you not only change your career, but if you also change your country, your life path, everything around you. There will be many moments like this, but it's always this, what are your options? Would you really, if someone gives you the choice, would you really go back? Certainly no.
Yeah.
And the option is just now, okay, Yvonne, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, to scale down this much when you experience just another lifestyle. But first of all, it's not going to stay this way. And second of all, think what is really important for you. And it was immediately this feeling of, what is important to me is the work that I'm doing. What is important to me that I'm connecting with so many wonderful, inspiring people. What is important to me that is I'm true to myself, to the things that, I want to explore, that I want to experience. And if it's experienced this way, okay, it's this way. And this is, I think, also this, sometimes we have this idea, okay, we leave it, we try something new, and it's like this magical path. And then just because we are aligned with our calling, everything is so easy, and rainbows, butterflies, and dollars showering down our face. And the thing is, it's the joy of building this path and building it with your own hands. This is what I experienced, and this is what I also would love, for everyone to experience, the joy of building it with your hands and not just having it handed over like, you won the lottery, here's your house. No, this house is the house that I was.
You are the builder, the mason,
the mason, every little brick. That's me who made it, and that's such a pride as well. A pride that you don't get elsewhere.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see, because I really see that aliveness that you were maybe lacking 6 years ago when you said, okay, no more. I think you made very good points here, that it was essential for you to not look back, to really have that door closed, so you're not playing ping pong yet again, oh, what would it be, and going forward, what would it be? And so you gave yourself the time. You did a postgraduate in Sao Paulo, and then that set you, if it's okay if I just summarize this a little bit, onto a path that brought you to coaching, that you're now working one-on-one with people. A big proponent is life design, and so you're coaching now and work one-on-one. I'm guessing the money is the money there where it was before?
From the financial part, if you look purely at the numbers, it's not quite where it was, but it's on a really steady flow upwards now. And that was for me the most important thing to know. Okay, I can build the things, and I know that it's a little bit slower also because of the way how I chose it. And it was a conscious choice, first of all, to start trying the coaching work and the personal development work in Brazil. And this was, slowing down matters a lot, because first I had to learn Portuguese. So if I would, if my choice would have been just to do what I'm doing now from the beginning on, just purely in Europe or in Germany, whatever, I think the increase would have come much earlier and much, more linear. But since I had to try out things that I wanted to try out, I wanted to try to work, first of all, in Brazil. And I knew that it would be more difficult, that I would earn less, because the income situation here is completely different than in Europe. What you ask in Europe for coaching, it's not the same that you can ask here. So I understand that it couldn't have been the same development that I would have been if I just picked one place in Europe and tried it from the beginning to the end there. But it was a very important learning for myself that I wanted to do. And so for me, now I understood that what I need in order to be completely financially where I want to be, and I need a good combination. I need to work with my European clients in the one-on-one coaching. And for the Brazilian market, I chose, the workshops, the group where people with not so much money can afford to participate, can afford to do the training with me, but I still get my income that I need to afford a lifestyle also between Europe and Brazil. And I had to understand which mix do I need. And understanding, the way that you want to work, but also the way that you will reach the income that you need for yourself. And that took me, 2 or 3 years to figure out. And that was the one milestone that had been missing in the past still. I had figured out what I wanted to do. It took me another while to figure out how can I do it so it will be financially sustainable and, fulfilling in the way that I need it for my lifestyle, for the things that are important to me. And they are certainly different now than they have been in Brussels, but still, and to do it.
Yes. A quick side question here, please, because I strongly believe that we also, when we find a place that is our home, that we feel in our heart, not necessarily where we were born, but that is calling us, we can do better work. I very strongly felt that, like when in my 20s I moved to New York City. Back then, that was my home. I felt much more like a New Yorker than an Austrian. And now it's now I'm reorienting again. But is Brazil that for you? Do you think Brazil gives you also the creativity, and this is the place that makes you do better work?
Definitely. And I think it's also the aspect of, I feel it's like, for me, it was like a playground. I felt like I could try out so many things without needing to get it perfect in the beginning, because here everything is so unperfect. Everyone is just trying out things. So they don't have the sense of perfectionism that we have in Germany, where like, do it, but do it right, or don't do it at all. And he was like, well, try it, just, and then you see. So it was definitely, for what I did, it helped to be in Brazil. I was in such a good energy. I was, as you said, I'm glowing, and I felt this here. So it was definitely this place here gave me the fertile soil to try out the things, because it felt right. And I had many friends, who came for this international postgraduate program in social innovation management, which said, oh, we had a great time here in Sao Paulo or in Brazil, but we don't feel the connection. So as you said with New York, by the way, I love New York as well, but there are places where you feel the connection, and then please follow this connection. It's like, give it a try, at least give it a try. I said also to myself, I feel the connection. I will give myself a try here. If it's not working out, at least I'm not, living my life in regrets, like, how would life be if I could ever be or try a life in Brazil?
Yes.
I tried it. And at one point I was really there, said, I think I tried it enough. I think I'm ready to go back to Europe now. I also had, some issues with getting a long-term visa. I was like, I think this chapter is written. Let's turn the page. And now I come back to your other question.
Yes, yeah, please.
That's
Yeah,
when the man came.
yeah. Please, let's talk about your love life. Let's talk about your relationship, because of course we want to know what happened. How did you guys meet? Where did you guys meet? How long ago? How long did it take, for him to come into your life and for you to come into his life? Let's talk about love, please.
Yeah, and so funny enough, because you mentioned the book Eat, Pray, Love, and she also met a Brazilian. So
I know,
there's something it is, oh, let's look for our life journey and then meet the Brazilian. But it wasn't on purpose. And we met many years, and it was still when I was in Brussels. But we met through a business, it was just a business encounter.
Okay, hang on. Wait. You guys met in Brussels when you were still at your job?
Yeah, but it was like just an encounter, and it was the business encounter. It was not possible at this time. He was married. And this was like a declick for me. Like, I would love my life, where he is in Brazil. And he's this entrepreneur. So, I would love this. But
wait,
ended.
Okay, hang on a second.
The story ended there.
But you thought you had that feeling when you met him 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever it was, in Brussels while he was married, but you had this inclination that
this is like, this is my man, but I can't have him. And it was like, sometimes you have these meetings, encounter with people, and they stir up something in you. And the interesting thing now looking back is I'm so happy that, we couldn't have a relationship back then, or there couldn't be anything, because I had to go my own journey to be at this point where I did everything for myself, the life that I wanted for myself, without the help of a man. Because sometimes it's also this wish of, oh, please, can there just someone come and just get me there?
Rescue me. Yeah, rescue me.
Rescue me. Take the easy path. Do the work for me, marry me, get me the visa. Whatever it is, sometimes, we have this thought like, oh, that would be the only opportunity for us to get this kind of life. And it's not. It's absolutely not. We have even more power, to do it for our own. And it was so beautiful that we didn't get the chance to be together at this point, because it set me off an amazing journey that I needed to have for myself. And I needed to follow this path. So we never lost completely contact. There were times where for 1-2 years we didn't talk, but there was at one point just a reconnection.
Where? And he was in Sao Paulo, and you just reconnected again?
Rio.
Okay, where you guys are now. But please, so when was that you guys really reconnected and thought like, oh wow, now our time has come?
That was the time when he was entering his divorce. And I think also from him there was this, I don't know, but I guess he felt the same way. Like, there is a person out there. I don't know why, I don't know what, I don't know how. Let's reconnect, just to see, with no expectations. And this is what happened. So from the no expectation, like, we are now between Brazil and Europe. We have been juggling, this long distance relationship throughout COVID, which had been, a mega challenge, because when you finally, you meet this love, and finally you say, let's give it a try, just a try. That's all that we want. And then COVID, boof, borders closed, boof, lights are canceled, everything is uncertain. It's like, okay, universe, I thought you gave me all the lessons already. Why the next ones? But for our relationship, it was very important. It was also important to really consciously grow despite the things and despite this expectation. Now we have the happy end. And it wasn't, because that's often how things are, you know? It's not from the beginning, this happy end, it's your beginning. And then you will still have moments where you have to fight for this love and where you have to grow together and where you have to ask yourself, oh boy, well, yeah, we really do love each other, but how are we going to do this life? Because I'm not letting go completely of Europe. He is more here in Brazil. So this figuring it out now together. And I think this is also a very beautiful arc. I was able to figure it out for myself. And in a moment, you know, where, you know, I was standing strong on my feet, it was time for someone else to come in. And now, you know, we're figuring it out together, but without anyone needing to rescue the other, without anyone being, you know, this fantasy of a better life somewhere else. No, you know, I gave myself this fantasy myself through my own work, you know, hard way, no shortcuts. And the reward is even better this way. And relationships are so much better this way, when no one, you know, needs the other one to rescue you from a life where you don't want to be. And I think this would have been the any relationship that would have come at the point where I was in Brussels would have been, you know, a rescue relationship for me. I would always look for the rescue relationship. And that's now not how it works if you want, you know, if you want a really good life for yourself, because that can work short term. It can bring a little, maybe I could have found someone who, you know, would have been moved or transferred to another country, but it wouldn't have been my journey. It wouldn't have been my move. It wouldn't have been my courage. It would always been the other one taking, you know, my life.
Yes. Yes, thank you. It was truly your life, your journey, your brick by brick.
Yeah.
That you laid your own path and your own foundation. As my last question, please, because I know that in many of our female listeners' mind, they're doing the math. You were in your late 30s, so now you have those 5-6 years, and now in your mid 40s, children. What are you still, because that is for so many, it's like they were thinking, oh my God, then the time is over. What is it? Is my last question. Parting thoughts on having children in your mid 40s.
Yeah. And I must say, I read your book, and that's also how we connected. And this book helped me so much to understand that it's not an age question. It's not purely an age question. It's so much more, and it's understanding where you are self in your life. It's understanding where you are with your body, with your health. And this was also for me a learning experience to say, do I really want to make it just purely about the age? And do I want to put myself again under all this pressure and all this desperation, you know, every month that is passing, like, oh my God, now it's too late, now it's too late. And I understood, and really your book helped me so much that no, once again, it's not a question of a straight line. There's so much that has to happen, and we're still on the path. So
yes.
we just see what life brings. As you can imagine, this COVID also brought a lot of frustration, because it's not easy if you're stuck in two different continents to advance on this topic. But I understood also there's so much work that I can do for myself. And I understood also that the mother that I would be now is so completely different from the mother that I would have been with 37 in Brussels, frustrated, sick, chronically ill. Of course, I had another number, but I think, you know, I'm now in a much better place that it's going to happen than back then.
Yeah. And as someone who has, like, I had my boy at 44, and thank you. Yes, we came together through my book, The Joy of Later Motherhood.
I loved it.
where so many women I chronicled their stories about, you know, becoming mothers in their 40s. And I think this is very important to hear also for all of us, that we can actually be much healthier on so many levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, today than we were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that I think every woman needs to hear, if you have the wish for a child, or the wish for a new path in your life, you know, or the wish for a new partner, that life can actually get exponentially better. And that every single step that we are taking today is putting down the next brick of our path, so we can reap the rewards in 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. And you were such a beautiful example of that, Yvonne. Thank you so much. It was really a joy having you here today. And I can't wait until we get the baby news. Then all of us are going to celebrate, okay? But we want to celebrate you then. Let us know, please.
Yes. So wonderful. Thank you so much.